What is up, everyone? Welcome, welcome, welcome. What's up? Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Building Worlds. Hello, Mr. J. Hey, welcome. If I made that intro video, well, yes and no. I made all the scenes you see there, but the video itself, the editing, that was my best friend. He's a music composer, but he does a lot of like After Effects as well, so he helped me out with that. But the scenes you see there are in Unreal. Those are made by me. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Right. Okay, so I decided to keep working on the rocks that we've been sculpting for the last 2 weeks. So you guys, I don't bore you out of your skulls, because I'm aware that not a lot of people enjoy rock sculpting. I do. It's one of my favorite things to sculpt. But I did advance a lot in the sculpts, and I'm today what we're going to try to go through is the techniques to make all of these stones. Well, maybe not all of them, because it's just a 2-hour stream. I'm working on my schedule to see if I can make longer streams in here. So stay tuned for that. And we're going to do some retopology in ZBrush. We're going to make the meshes game ready inside of ZBrush without using any third-party DCCs and all of that, and even the UVs. We're going to talk about the new UV mapping features that came out in the last version, 2023.2, and that's it. I think that's ambitious as well, because it's a 2-hour stream. And if you guys have any questions, just let me know. I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. Another thing that I want to tell you guys, and I was just waiting, this is all like stalling for time, right? I just launched my own Discord server for you guys to join. If you're looking for portfolio reviews, questions that you might have regarding not only ZBrush, but as you guys might know, some of you, I'm a 3D environment artist for games. So that means I work with Unreal, I work with Substance Painter, Substance Designer, I work with SpeedTree, Gaia, a whole bunch of different software, but primarily ZBrush. So if you guys have any questions regarding any of those pieces of software, you can reach out to me. And ZBrushLIVE is always a good place to answer your ZBrush questions. So if you have any particular like ZBrush questions, just put them on there. I'm gonna put the link on the chat. Just give me a sec. Yeah, there you go. So if you join that Discord, you'll find that it's still pretty new. So like the channels are still, you know, a little bit basic, but I'm planning on adding new things and features to the server. And it's basically a hub where you guys can just go in and ask for questions, and you know, I'll keep posting stuff as well, like articles and game art, ZBrush live streams, not just mine, but you know, from other streamers that I feel are doing stuff that is kind of relatable to what we do in our streams. So yeah, I use knife curve brush to create rocks in ZBrush. Yeah, that's a good way to go about it, just to start slicing up the mesh, right? How are you? I'm fine, I'm great. Saturday afternoon, actually. It's a little earlier because unfortunately I mistakenly, and if Smartest is looking at this and watching this, I'm so sorry, dude. I scheduled the streams to the same time he used to stream, and it didn't cross my mind that was his schedule slot. So I'm very, very much sorry, dude. So I basically made the stream go a little earlier. So next you have Smartest going on his stream. But yeah, so I'm trying to work out the schedule. This is not the final date, let's say, that the stream's gonna go. I'm just figuring out some freelance work at the moment, and and I'll let you guys know on the Discord server if you join it. So there it is. Okay, so let's go to our ZBrush scene. There it is. And as you recognize, this is the rock that we were sculpting. And I made a couple of variations here, not very different. I mean, they're different from this one, but not a lot, right? And then there's, this is kind of blocky, you know? It's kind of blocky. And I decided to do a cleaner version of this. It's basically clay polish and then just using the flatten edge brush to go around it. It's still a little rough here and there, you know. I want to make this a little bit cleaner because the style we're going for is much more, let's say, around this style. Let me see if I can show you guys some concept art here. Why is it not showing? There it is. Okay, so we're going for something that's more on this style. Why is it not letting me? Oh, Jesus, why? What's going on? All right, so something more akin to this style right over here. And you can see how all the rocks are just clean. It's just, you have some edge highlights there, but that's all substance sort of texturing stuff. We could do this in ZBrush with poly paint, but I mean, if we're gonna do like game ready, you know, UV mapping stuff, you can also do that. I mean, I just watched, I don't know if you guys watched the SIGGRAPH panel, Maxon panel. Anna Carolina has done a great talk there on how to transfer poly paint into the current UVs on your mesh. So basically baking the poly paint onto a texture, which is super useful, especially if you're in games, because Unreal or Unity for that matter requires texture maps, right? To actually, it can get like vertex color, which is technically poly paint, but it's not for what you usually think of poly paint in ZBrush, which is for painting. In Unreal, you use vertex color for other stuff, like effects and shader transitions and stuff like that. All right, cool. Let me just get my magic glove, you know, and let's get on with the show. So, whoops, that easy. There we go. Okay, so this is, we're gonna postpone this for now. I'm gonna start off by showing you 3 different ways that I go about retopologizing meshes in ZBrush to get them to a state where I can actually bring that into an engine. Basically, if you want to get something really quick that you want to retain, let's say, its shape primarily, but not worry too much about the seams and all that, you just want to show the art director something, you can very quickly get away with something like this, decimated with UV. So let's imagine for a second, let me just duplicate this because I don't want to destroy anything over here. So I'm over to the 60 million already, Jesus. Okay, so let's say this is super high poly, right? Well, it's not super high poly, but it's like 2 million, which is fair, right? And you want to get this very quickly to your art director in the engine to show him or her what it looks like, right? So what you do when you want to do a quick UV pass here, you basically want to have polygroups if you're going to use UV master, right? This is the old way I used to do UVs in ZBrush. Even the final UVs, I would just use UV master. But nowadays, you can actually do a combination of the UV master and a new feature in UV map, which is using creases to cut the edges of your shells, basically. So you have now like ultimate control over the shells. So what we do to get a very quick like UV decimated pass is basically you come over here to the slice curve brush and just slice it in half, and you have 2 polygroups, right? And this is the key. Polygroups are your seams, basically, and they're not perfect, you know, but I mean, at this point, it doesn't really matter. One of the reasons that I kept my polygroups, like my rocks, separated for as long as I could on the other mesh was because it also aids in the creation of UVs, right? This is the one that we left last time. We left it like this. The issue is that when you're sculpting it as a whole, this starts to happen, right? So you're sort of sculpting on every polygroup, so it doesn't represent, let's say, the shape that you're going for the particular rock. You can see it. You can see it here particularly. You're getting something that like this, which is not ideal, right? So, and then you have something like that and like that, which is not at all what we want. So, in this case, if you want to get a quick, like, decimated with UVs, if you look at the geometry, it's fairly dense. It's Dynamesh, so it's a little iffy, you know, like this topology is not ideal, not perfect. And basically what you do is you want to decimate this but keep UVs, but first we're going to do the UVs. So what I usually do for UV master usually is a little slow if you have like super high poly meshes. I mean, not on my machine, but for some reason, if you have a machine that takes a little longer to handle all of that geometry, you can go over here to ZRemesher. I already have that edge loop over there, so because slice curve creates an actual edge loop, you can see it here. You see that? That's the result of the slice curve. It creates this perfectly straight edge. So what we're going to do is going to tell ZRemesher that we want to keep groups, and this is going to basically retain that separation between the two polygroups, right? I don't want to smooth the groups because that's basically a polish, like a polish by groups that's going on. And we're going to reduce the adaptive size to 0, right? The adaptive size is basically, it adapts the density of the geometry and the flow of the shape of the quads to the variations in edge curvature. So you don't want to do that unless you really want to retain the shape. In my case, I don't. One of the other things I'm going to do is press Control and tap the undo history. That's going to give me like that little gray bar that is stored in memory, right? So now if I ZRemesher this, let's go same right now because all I want is to get a good topology. And technically when you do same, it might not give you like the exact same number of polygons, but it's still, it gives you cleaner topology than what you have with Dynamesh. So let's just wait a little bit. There we go. Right. So one of the things you notice is that it blurred out a lot of the detail, but it retained that edge loop. And to be honest, if you're just showing this to an art director like real quick, you don't really care about this because you're decimating it anyway at the end of the day. So what we're going to do now that we have like 100K, this is okay for a UV master. So we already have the polygroups and a nice perfect edge. We're going to go to Z plugin, go to UV master right over here, click this polygroups button, turn off symmetry. It's not a symmetrical object, so the UVs won't be symmetrical, and click on wrap. And what this does is basically gonna generate 2 shells. You see there, 2 of 2. So it's gonna generate 2 shells because we have 2 polygroups, right? And we can check the UVs after it's done by going to UV master and clicking flatten. It's gonna give us a representation of the flattened UVs. These are not perfect at all. Like this wouldn't be acceptable for a final game ready production model, but for preview purposes, that's fine. And you can see, like, memorize this UV layout, all right? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go here and put some, like, surface noise, just so you guys can see the UVs at work. So if I go to surface, edit the noise, and click here, UVs, and I have, like, a texture map over there. So I'm gonna up the strength and lower the scale. Actually raise the scale, no, lower it, and then just, yeah, so you can see, let's reset this curve, and yeah, so you can see sort of like this texture wrapping around the object perfectly. There's no stretching on the side, there's only like a seam there, right, which is where we left our seam. But the noise is working perfectly. Let me just look. And basically, this is just a preview, right? It's not actually displacing the geometry. It's just previewing it. And this is just so we can see what's going on in the UVs. So what we can do now is go to Decimation, click this Keep UVs button, pre-process current. It's going to process the entire mesh. Actually, before that, we might want to, we still have that history tab over there because it's blurred out. We want to keep the details, right? So what you want to do is smooth and then go over here to project. Where's, oh, right, it's in the subtool palette. Go to project under subtool, turn off color. I don't want to project color, and project history. It's going to project the mesh where it was right over there on our undo history tab, right? So if I go project history, it's projecting, you know, it's 500,000, and you can see it's projecting the detail back, but it still has UVs. It still has a nice geometry, a nice topology. Well, nicer than we had. It's not perfect. And now what we can do is divide even further, project history again, and it's going to give us maximum amount of detail. Let me know, guys, let me know if the music's too loud, if you guys can hear me. I never tried mapping in ZBrush. Is it faster in Maya? Oh yeah, definitely. I do all my UVs in ZBrush and then I tweak them in Maya. So basically what I do in Maya is I just take the UVs that I already have in my game ready mesh in ZBrush from ZBrush, and I pack the UVs accordingly, according to textile density, according to, and I assign different materials depending if I want more than one material ID and stuff like that. So yeah. If you're doing basic UVs in ZBrush, well, I wouldn't say it's just basic UVs. You would be surprised the amount of games that use ZBrush to make the actual UVs. Like, I don't know if you guys watched the ZBrush Summit from a couple of years ago. There was a talk by the Doom Eternal team. The team at id Software went to the ZBrush Summit. And they showed how they made every single game-ready mesh entirely in ZBrush. I'm talking from the helmet of the Doomslayer. I'm talking weapons. I'm talking monsters. I'm talking hard surface, organic. I'm talking game-ready. I'm talking cinematic. Everything was made in ZBrush. I guess the only thing that they did outside of ZBrush was assign the textile density accordingly and the material IDs. From when I watched that, from then on, I tried to do that same workflow, and ever since then, I never used another workflow because it's just so much faster, and the results can get like pretty clean. You'd be surprised. All right, cool, thank you. Yeah, volume's great. All right, so you can see like I projected, I have all my details back from the mesh, right? And what I can do now is go over here. Let's just delete the subdivisions because we don't need them anymore, and just go to Z plugin and pre-process current with the Keep UVs button turned on. And what you'll find is that, well, it's processing the mesh, right? It's storing a version of that mesh in cache, basically. And now we can even type in the exact number of poly count that we want for the particular game you're making or whatever. What is UV map and displacement map for basics? You mean like what is UV mapping? And what is a displacement map? Is that what you mean? Like what does it mean? Yeah, well, if you mean like what does it mean, UV maps? Basically, UV maps are a 2D representation of your 3D model. So every time you're painting something in a game, when you see color or reflections and stuff like that on a character's face, for example, that's actually a 2D texture wrapped around the face, you know. So there's like the amount of geometry that you get that gives you like the fine like contours and silhouette of the model, but then like the details and the color and all of that you see in a model, that's usually a 2D texture wrapped around the model. So you have to tell the software where do the points in the mesh are represented in the 2D image, basically, right? So basically it's a 2D representation. If I go over here to the UV master and I flatten it, right? Oh no, please don't crash. Sometimes this happens. Okay, yeah. Well, if ZBrush for some reason just, you know, does a little hiccup, don't touch anything. Usually it comes back to life. So you see, this is our mesh in a 2D representation fashion, right? If I wanted to paint something, in this case I'm painting poly paint, but the idea of UVs, let me just go to our paintbrush, I'm sorry, BPA, and change my material to like a basic material. And I start painting over here, actually. I start painting here. And now I unflatten. You'll see where that part is represented on a 3D model. So if I go over here and to UV master and unflatten, that section that I just painted, where is that section that I just painted? Maybe it has polypaint turned off. Let me see. Nope, polypaint's turned on. Let me check something. Maybe it's not working. Flatten. Something is definitely wrong. It's taking too long to flatten. Well, it has a lot of geometry, to be fair. Yeah, but it's not allowing me to paint for some reason. I can even sculpt here, actually. See that? So let's unflatten now. Well, we can't. Maybe it's because it's UV master. UV master is using instancing. Let's go to our UV map and bump at 0, morph UVs. Okay. So this is our UVs, right? And if I go to paint and I paint something over here, let's just type in ZBrushLIVE, right? And I basically unmorph this UV. There it is. You see, like that section of the 2D sort of representation represented this section. So what you usually have is a 2D image that then wraps around the model, right? That's a UV. That's what UVs are for, right? And then let me just go back to where we were. I don't want these scribbles here. And let's unmorph it. There we go. And displacement is usually a texture that, you know, it's a texture. It's a 2D texture, so it needs UVs. And it is a texture that displaces the geometry when it's rendered, right? So surface noise, for example, it's a displacement map that displaces the geometry. It actually moves the vertices up and down based on an image, right? So when you go to surface noise, you can see we have a little displacement map over there, right there, right? And that displacement map is not, well, it's gonna displace the geometry, but I need to apply it first. So right now it's just a preview. You can see it doesn't really change that much. It just changes the aspect, but it's not actually moving the polygons. If I apply this to the mesh, you see it move the polygons a little bit. That is actually applied now. So this is a displacement map, okay? That's the gist of it. UV mapping is your model to yeah, exactly. Yeah, for texturing. Yeah, but in layman's terms, try to think of it like you're gift wrapping something, right? So you have like a little toy, like a figure, and you're trying to gift wrap. You know those chocolate Santa Claus? I saw this on Ian's talk at SIGGRAPH, actually. He did this. He got this amazing image. I wish I had that image for my students, though. It's easier to explain that way. So there's those chocolate Santa Claus that have like this metal wrapping around it with paint, and it looks like Santa Claus, but as you peel it off, it just looks like a chocolate, you know, thing. So that peel, that wrap, that metal wrap, is basically your texture. And what the UVs are doing is exactly that. It's the 2D representation wrapping around the model, and it looks like a Santa Claus, right? So that's exactly it. Okay, so back to our little thingy here. What we want to do now is go to Z plugin. We already processed this. Not sure if it did though. Let's just say I want 3,000 polygons and decimate current. All right, I cannot decimate. It ruined our morph UV thing. It kind of ruined the UV. So let's just go and pre-process again. And let's see what's going on. And this is just the quick way. I'm taking a little bit longer. You're welcome. Yeah, anytime. Yeah, U and V just mean basically up and down in UV space. Yeah, it's U, V, X, Y, Z, basically. That's the last 5 letters of the alphabet, right? So, all right, so we have our decimated mesh with the UVs, and now if I type in, all right, I want 3,000 polygons, and I decimate current, there we go. And this is 3,000 polygons. Oh, it isn't. Something's wrong here. It's not giving me the 3,000 for some reason. It's gonna do it now. Okay, so this is our 3,000 polygon mesh. But I mean, if you're just previewing this, you might as well, you can just go and let's say, okay, I want 10%. Decimate current. And now that's 200,000. And you're like, okay, maybe this is still a little too much. Let's go 5%. And you only need to pre-process once. That's the point of pre-processing. You pre-process it, it stores that in a cache, and you can just tweak the slider, click decimate it, boom, it's done, right? So you don't need to pre-process every time you want to reshape this. Okay, so 20,000 seems fair enough. And let's do, well, this says 40,000, but it's 40,000 triangles, let's say. So let's go, and points, which is what you get here, it's 20,000. So let's go 20 and decimate current. And this is fine. You can already send this to a game engine. That's like, how many triangles? Yeah, that's exactly it, right? So we have like 40,000 triangles probably. Yeah, because we have like, no, it's actually everything's triangles. So it's 20,000 triangles, which is acceptable for a rock. And you have UVs. So if I morph the UVs again now, morph, you can see the UVs are still there, right? And we're not going to polypaint anymore after this, because now polypaint depends on the density of your geometry, so you're going to get weird results. But this is ideal for texturing, right? So this is one way you can retopo. I don't consider this retopo. I consider this sort of like preview iteration with the art director, you know? But this is a valid sort of workflow if you're doing like quick iteration in the engine, right? And let's just switch back this color, and let's get this to, all right, so this is going to be our low. Another cool thing that I usually use is ZRemesher, right? And you're going to say, okay, so, but ZRemesher doesn't give you like good results. Well, it gives you a pretty close result. And you have a lot of like features and tools that allow you to help ZRemesher get where you want it to be. So one of the things that I do when I have like a super high poly mesh that has no polygroups whatsoever is I try to get those polygroups, because that's important, right? You could just come over here and do slice and stuff like that, but I want ZRemesher to actually get a fair representation of an edge loop right over there, and another one on the top, another one there, and that's all dependent on polygroups, as we said previously. So there's ZRemesher, you need to keep groups on, right? So I'm going to duplicate this again, because I want to have the low poly and the high poly on the same scene. So this is going to ramp up real quick. Okay, so now what I want to do is actually, I want to use this little plugin here called Polygroup It. Where's Polygroup It? Polygroup It, there it is. And this is one of the few features in ZBrush that uses the GPU instead of the CPU. Let me just put it here. So it actually opens up a separate window over here. For less poly is better. Yeah, well, ideally, yeah. Like, well, now there's nanite, right? And basically, it's like nanite allows you to have like super high poly meshes, but if you're doing a game, usually you won't see nanite everywhere, right? Because you want to save up on performance, and it's not that nanite is performance intensive, which it isn't, for a high poly mesh. You know, it's still much better performant to have a low poly mesh with all that detail as normal maps and stuff like that, you know? And you can get away. I mean, I've been doing projects with Nanite and the retopologized mesh, and you put them side by side and they're literally the same. You can't tell the difference because the silhouette, as long as you know what you're doing when you're retopologizing, you can get the same silhouette, and then the detail is all normal maps. You don't need that. You're never gonna see that, the crevices and all of that, you know? So you can get away with that, and Nanite takes up disk space as well. So the games could be like way, way bigger than they are right now. Not to say that that it's not used in the games industry, not at all. It's just that you might use it for like a hero prop or something, a unique piece in the scene or whatever, you know? So that's, or cinematics. So the cool thing about polygroup it is you double tap and you create these little nodes basically, and these nodes will give you polygroups. That's literally what they give you. So you do something like this, and then you double tap here, double tap there, double tap there, and double tap there. Whoops, that was too much. And double tap there. And I wanna, actually I don't wanna fill this too much. And I want to fill this a little bit more, not that much. And you can move these nodes around. You can put them like over there on that crease. And one other thing I usually do is I extend those edges. And it's gonna extend everything to cross between each other. So another node over there, and that's it. Okay, so this still doesn't give you like, you know, perfect geometry, but it gives you a fair representation of the distinctions on the planes, right? So maybe not this one. You tap Alt and click to delete those. Maybe I want another one over here. Let's see. And let's see what this one's doing. It's fighting the other one. Let's get this to like point. Well, maybe I don't want this one. I can always split that after the fact anyway. And another polygroup here. Okay, this is not ideal over there. We want something like that, right? And now if you press OK, and now you see that we have the polygroups, right? That's polygrouping, right? It's only bad if you have a model that needs proper texture details laid out. What do you mean by if you have a model that needs proper texture details laid out? That's exactly what the UVs are for, right? So it's the best way to decimate, to use decimate. What is the best way to use decimate? Well, just like I showed you, basically. It's literally just some polygroups and do UVs, because you never know if you need them, and then just bring it into substance or whatever, texture that real quick. You can even just apply some smart materials, because this is just for previs. This is just for ideation with your art director, right? So it doesn't need to be the final. If it's not the final model, it's not the final texture, right? So that's usually the principle. So then for your final textures, you want to do something a little cleaner, right? So what I want to do now is I can go over here, isolate these polygroups, and then just clean them up like so. And I want to clean this up as well. And what we're going to do now is basically we want to tap, go back to our select rectangle, select all of these. Actually, that one too. Let's go back to our slice and slice this up. There we go. Doesn't need to be perfect. It's just I'm trying to just showcase. Yeah, select all of that, and now Control W, and that's a separate polygroup, right? And this is fine already because it's still gonna detect like your edges and all that. And I mean, the geometry itself is not it's not, you know, ready for. And another cool thing is that we can still come over here. So this is the power of combining features in ZBrush. Is basically you wanna use whatever's at your disposal. So you can come over here and, for example, pick this. Let me see. That is actually. Let me just cut this as well, like so. Whoops. We can always just mask this area. And do this. And now do this, and Control W. And for some reason that little section over there got cut as well. So we want to do, when you isolate this, you can always do like auto groups, and it still detects these. I have my auto groups here. It's polygroups, auto groups. Where's my auto groups? Oh, it's over here. Auto groups. And now since these are disconnected from each other, they get separate polygroups when you select them, right? No. Well, the only reason you might want to worry about that is depending on your machine, right? Like the amount of polygons, that's almost entirely dependent on your RAM memory. So the amount of RAM that you have will dictate like the limit of your polygons. If you have like 16 gigs of RAM, I know this for a fact because my laptop has 16 gigs of RAM. You can go to like, depending on your scene as well, and if you have like layers of layers for once, and surface noise applied and all that stuff, depending on how much things you have going on, like array mesh is a big thing. Like if you have array mesh, it's technically calculating those polygons anyway. So if you have stuff like that turned on, then it could be lower, but I would say like 40,000 is fair when you have like 16 gigs of RAM total. I mean total. My machine right now has 64 gigs of RAM, and I could just go like to 100 million actually, which is the limit per tool, right? All right, cool. So this is going to belong to this one. Whoops. This one. Control W. This one is going to belong to that one. Whoops. There we go. I want to have that edge loop going over there. And we might want to cut this a little nicer. Again, you have to think this is, you're sort of helping out ZRemesher, right? So you're gonna have a little cut over there, and we wanna select that, and Control W, and that's it. Actually, this is too close. Control W, something like that, right? This is still a little weird. I mean, it's still fine. You can still do like, you know, smooth on the groups and then project history. I'm gonna do the history button thing. That's one of my favorite features in ZBrush actually. So let me just check if this is what's going on over here. Yeah, this could be merged to this, definitely. Something like that. And we could help ZBrush out. So, okay, let's just go over it. Control click here. I want to always save like a history thingy, a history node. And just go over here to geometry, ZRemesher, keep groups, smooth groups. I can smooth them a little bit, like 0.5. I want to keep the adaptive size, but not as much, like 20. And I want to try auto detect art edges. And well, this is useful if you have a clay polish or something, which we will. So let's just go over here and try it, because usually just do it once and then see what works, right? I want to be really good in ZBrush and creating characters for games. Beginners don't know what I should pay attention to. All right, I'm not a character artist, right? But I know a lot of character artists, and I know what you need in terms of like basic foundational skills, and that's usually goes around, most people know this, it's anatomy, right? You need to know anatomy, but it's not just anatomy. You want to know, sometimes people focus on characters because they don't want to do props, or they do characters because they think of like mascots and stuff like that, which is literally just stylized cartoon characters that have, well, some of them have clothing, but most of them are naked, you know, per se. But to be honest, it's rare that you're going to do a character that's naked. You know what I mean? So it's not just anatomy. You need to know how to do clothing. You need to know how to do a hard surface, because armor is hard surface. Props like a belt or stuff like that, that's kind of hard surface, you know? So hair, that's important as well. But it can be overwhelming, like the amount of things that you need to learn, right? But I would say just stick to the fundamentals first. Like, if you can, I don't know where you're from, and I don't know if I'm assuming or not, and if I am, I'm sorry, but if you can, join like a live drawing class at least once a week, you know, once a week, draw from life, from the model. If you can, learn the principles of drawing on the side as well, have a master teach you, that's the best way. If you can't, at least draw a little bit from real people, not just, you know, stylized stuff. Just learn real anatomy, learn real fashion design, you know, learn composition like the old masters did, and then you'll find that your eye is being trained to look at beauty and composition and harmony, and then you can do whatever you want with those principles, let's say. So that is usually my advice for someone that's just starting as a character artist, and to be honest, that applies even for environment artists, you know. So why not use, I don't know if does that answer your question? I mean, we have a few character artists already that I know on our Discord channel. So, you know, working in the industry. So if you want to join Discord and, you know, ask for feedback. If I don't reply, a lot of people will reply anyway. So that's my goal, at least. Other people reply and get feedback to each other. So do you have any advice for why not use ZRemesh guides? Yeah, that too. I was going to use that. Yeah. I use everything. That's the key, right? So a lot of people just go, oh, ZRemesh is not working. Let me try ZRemesh guides. It's not working. Let me go back, and instead of ZRemesh guides, let me use polypaint control, you know? And the thing is, that's the key about ZBrush, is that features sort of complement each other. So, for example, this little iffy part right over there, that's usually, you know, a bad sign. So what I do is I go over here to ZModeler, and I go to an edge and go to collapse edge, and I collapse this whole thing, you know, just to help out, especially if you have something in the border. Because again, I don't care about smoothing, because I have like a history tab, like the history node pinned, so that means I can at any state, at any stage, just reproject all the details. So you see that was like hidden weirdness going on over there. I'm just going to do this to help out ZRemesher. But you can use ZRemesh guides, definitely. And if something is not working, for example, let's say I wanted an edge loop over there, and it didn't give me that, right? So what I want to do, let me go back to where we were before. There we go. So what you want to do now is you want to, besides having polygroups, you can go to ZRemesh guides, which is a curve brush technically. It's going to aid your ZRemesh and help it out, finding like where do you want the edge loops to be. So I can even go, the smaller the draw size, the smaller the points on the curves are going to be. I just want an edge right there. Actually, I want an edge coming around from there, and I can just go over here and keep drawing that. I mean, you can be just a little broad, it doesn't need to be perfect, right? It's just to help out ZRemesher. Well, something like that. right? And I want maybe I want another one over here because this is a single polygroup, right? So I want another that goes like this all the way down there. So I want some curves, whoops, some of the edge loops to go around that geometry like so. All right, so now we have two ZRemesh guides. And the crucial one was this one. This one was the one that I was having issues with polygroup it. So you could just go over here and say, okay, that's gonna work fine. You don't need to be perfect with this, right? The more broad you are, actually, the better. Your link of the website to this Twitch channel is broken, by the way. Is it? Oh, I didn't know that. Maybe it's because I changed the name of the Pixelogic website to this Twitch channel. Are you sure? Like the Twitch, like Pixelogic Twitch channel? Because it is working. It's streaming, right, on Twitch. So it should. Let me check, right, real quick. ZBrushLIVE. You could take a look at it. I mean, I can't change that right away, but. Oh, okay. All right, I'll take a look at it. I'll have to take a look at it after the stream. Yeah. Takes me to a page not found. Are you talking about the Pixelogic Twitch channel, or you know, to ZBrush's Twitch channel, or my own like personal Twitch channel? What are you talking about? Because my own, it's probably true, because I've changed the name of my channel, and that usually messes up the link. I think I got knowledge about an eye, but don't know which ways of creating are most optimal in ZBrush. All right, so that takes me back to what I was just saying. You need to learn the fundamentals. It's not just anatomy, and not just art fundamentals. Also like CG fundamentals. You know, like UV mapping, like baking from high poly to low poly, making tileable textures, using tileable textures to create patterns in clothing and stuff like that. You know. How to use cards for your hair. If you're doing game characters particularly, it's very important to know how to use cards. So cards for hair, and not just cards, but also a mix between cards and fibers and simulations. Stuff like that. You don't need to know how to do the simulations, but you need to know how to do the assets that go into the simulations, right? Because that's what they're going to ask you to do in production, right? If you're gonna do a character and you have a technical artist working on a hair simulation, and the hair simulation for some reason uses a mix of curve simulations and fiber simulations, but also uses cards to create like a fluffy base, let's say, for the hair, then you need to know how to make cards, right? So, and yeah, so that's basically it. So you need to know, I would say, learn a piece of software that's like a DCC app, you know, like Cinema 4D, Maya, Blender, whatever you want. Learn ZBrush. That's essential. That's absolutely essential, especially for character artists. And then learn Substance. And then you have to find out ways to make the assets that you make, the characters that you make, game ready. And I guess that's where your difficulties are coming from, right? Like what does it mean, game ready? That's what we're here for, you know? We're here for that. I can help you with that, you know, like just join the Discord, share your portfolio, and I'll let you know. I'll let you know what I think, where you can improve, what you're doing right. I think that's important as well. Most people just focus the feedback on the negative. I think it's very important so you know which sections of what you're learning are the correct thing. You're making things that you're doing already that are correct, right? Oh, Discord, I'll link it again. Let me link it again. and there it is. It's still new, so don't judge. It still doesn't have a lot of channels and stuff like that. Yeah, but if you guys have any questions or you just want a quick like portfolio overview, just put it there. It sounds terrible for someone new. What do you mean? Terrible for someone new? You mean the Discord, or like the amount of things you need to learn? I mean, it is, you can just get away with being a ZBrush character artist. Technically, that's a valid, there's a lot of people working in the collectibles industry, for example, that just use ZBrush and a slicing software for your 3D printer. That's also valid. That depends on what you want to do. If you want to go the gaming route, like I did, then it's not just ZBrush. ZBrush is a core in my workflow, particularly. I use like ZBrush for like 99% of the work. Yeah, well, but that's never gonna change, right? You're never gonna stop learning. Like, God forbid that some software that I use every day, let's say Gaia or whatever. I use Gaia for terrain generation, and it's rather new. But let's say that the software doesn't stick in the industry and it comes something new and then it discontinued. I need to learn a new piece of software to replace that, right? So you're always learning stuff, especially if you're into Unreal Engine. Like every time they do an update, it's crazy. Like the sheer amount of stuff they put in. And even ZBrush, like ZBrush, every time they do not even a full version, but like 2023.3, 2023.2, like the difference between the point versions it's just insane sometimes. Just this sheer amount of features that come out. It's just impossible if you have an attitude that it's like, okay, I learned ZBrush, I'm not gonna learn anymore, I just use this for this and that's it. You can't have that attitude. Not in this industry. There are a lot of industries that are like that. This one isn't one of them. ZBrush, Substance, Maya, Blender, C4D, 3S Max, Marvel's Designer, Unreal Engine, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, it depends on what you are doing. What is it for? You could do a project that you don't need Marvel's Designer for that particular project. You know, it might be something that's fully hard surface. Maybe you're doing a mech character, or maybe you're doing some sort of cyborg that's sort of half naked, but it isn't. You know, because the armor, it's kind of their skin is like armor or something. You know, so it depends on the project, right? It depends. So if you're making like a, well, let's say a demon or something, or a wraith for like a fantasy game, you don't need Marvelous Designer unless you have like actual clothes. So that depends, right? But basically, ZBrush, Substance, and Maya / Cinema 4D / Blender / 3ds Max, that's like the basic, right? As DCC apps, ZBrush, Substance Painter. That's like the foundation. Yeah. All right, so let's try this one more time. Let's do this and do ZRemesh with the same turned on. Let's see what results we're getting. All right. Didn't come through. There was something. It's something I'm missing. It's curve strength, right? This is supposed to be. Yeah, this is exactly. Let me try curve strength up to max, and reduce adaptive size, and yeah, let's smooth the groups. There seems to be a popular combo ZBrush. Well, I wouldn't say a combo. Yeah, there's a combo there. But that depends, right? It depends on the production you're aiming for. If you're looking for something like a AAA production, it's very unlikely that you'll find Blender being used in AAA. You know? But it is used widely for indie devs because, you know, it's budget reasons. But again, it depends. It doesn't matter, to be honest. Doesn't matter what you're doing. is the two essential pieces of software that you need to know is ZBrush and Substance, actually. Maya / Blender, you usually do LODs, you do UVs, you do more technical stuff, let's say. And that's it. I mean, at least in my estimate, in my workflow, right? So again, this doesn't apply to everyone. But you can see like ZRemesher guides sometimes give you like wacky results. Just go BZM and collapse those edges a little bit over there. Whoops. There we go. Collapse that edge. Collapse that edge. You get something like that. And there we go. Yeah, but this is sort of like your basic kind of... One other workflow that I wanted to show you guys, and I'm not really sure if we're gonna make it this stream again, but another workflow that I wanted to show you guys was using other features like the Topology brush or the ZSphere Retopology, which is the old school way, but is actually one of my preferred ways. So here's how often you use... Well, in my case particularly, I don't use Blender, but it's valid, you know. I wouldn't say like a lot of people, you know, keep saying and stuff like that it replaces ZBrush. It doesn't. Like, let's be honest, it doesn't. But I would say Blender is more of an equivalent to Maya than it is to ZBrush, right? It's not the same piece of software at all. Autodesk is pricey. That's true. When you keep the edges hard in ZBrush, like you say, a cylinder for a revolver. Right, that's dynamic and creasing, right? I have a whole, on my own channel, I have a whole stream that I made it a revolver. But this was a long time ago, but it's still there. Yeah, so that's what we're gonna go through next, all right? So this is the other way. Let's just go half right now. Let's try to find the happy medium here. Hey, Veloso. How you doing, man? Yeah. If you want to know what software to use, look at the company you want to work. Yeah, that's true. Just look at job openings, you know? Just go to ArtStation on LinkedIn, just look at job openings and click those that you like and see what they ask for. And that's what you should learn. Literally, that's it. You want to know what to learn? Go to job postings and just learn that. You know, so okay, so we're getting iffy kind of geometry, but I mean, it's not perfect, but we can get away with it as well. So this is we're starting with the messier kind of workflows, and we're gradually moving on to the less messy ones. And as you get pretty low poly, you'll realize that, you know, a lot of those things that we were worried about a few moments ago just don't matter anymore. So we can just add ZRemesher over there with those polygroups, and we can start projecting actually, because it helps to retain the shape. So we can go back a few steps, project history, and smooth it out, project history again. That's the thing right there. Should have an edge loop there. So, and that's ZRemesher again, and project history again. And we can do, well, I should have done that before, like detect edges. But it doesn't matter. If it's going to be basically a normal map baked in, it doesn't really matter. And what I could do is I have another mesh right there, so I get out of solo mode, and I click transparency with ghost mode turned on, and I can see where I want that geometry to be. So I can come over here using the ZModeler and click Slice Mesh. Actually, I have a brush there that's called ZModeler Slice. That's in the Lightbox, Brushes. You go to ZModeler, you have like 3 variations of ZModeler. They're basically the same as the regular ZModeler, just with the settings already set up so you can do stuff. This is the one for Retopology, and this is the one for slicing, right? So let me just slice it over there. There we go. and we have a crease right over there. So what we can do now is we can slice this over there. Yeah, there we go. And now we know this mesh has that crease, right? And it has weird geometry over there. So we can do same and then go to keep creases, right? And it's gonna give me an edge right there. So it changed the edge flow. You can see the edge flow previously was like, this is all a grid pattern right over there. And now if I ZRemesh, it gives me that flow going in over there, right? So these are just a few tips. I use ZModeler all the time, not just to model, but to aid other features in ZBrush to do it, you know? How do we keep up that? Okay, that I already answered. When I ZRemesh, it messes up the cuts. Yeah, the cut-ins, yeah. So there's multiple ways. You could just keep nailing and trying to help ZRemesh out infinitely for hours, and then you nail sort of like the settings in ZRemesh, and you nail what you want, and then you just do the ZRemesh and it's done. And you can go back and then ZRemesh again, and the settings are already there. So yeah, but usually I do a mix between ZRemesh and other stuff. So if you want to know what software, yeah, okay, my advice is join this company's forums. Yeah, also that. Yeah, so ZBrush has the ZBrush classroom, the Z classroom, that has everything you need to know about ZBrush. There's like tutorials. There's a getting started with ZBrush. There's the getting started, if I'm not mistaken. Let me put it up on the chat. ZBrush. Whoops. Classroom. Yeah, Z Classroom. There it is. I'm just going to post it on chat. If you go to learn, there's like getting started with ZBrush. You need to log in, but I know, you know, that's like your regular. There it is. So there's like multiple tutorials there. I would highly advise you to join Michael Pavlovich's YouTube channel. He has a bunch of tutorials. Every time there's a new feature that releases in ZBrush, he does like videos for it. I always consider Mike's YouTube channel like the equivalent of the ZBrush documentation, but in video format. That's literally what it is, you know, because every feature is there. It's just go to his YouTube channel, go to the search video, and then type in the tool that you're having trouble with, and a lot of videos just pop in relating to that tool. So yeah, that would be my go-to for like advice and tutorials. But like actual courses, if you want like online courses that you pay to get instruction, to get feedback, I would advise CGMA as well, because that's also where I learned from Michael Pavlovich there. Or Gnomon Workshop, there's like a ton of tutorials there. There's Gnomon, the actual online courses. Sometimes you have like Maddie Spencer teaching there, doing the introduction to ZBrush, digital sculpting. That's also worth it. Yeah, I'm not sure. It depends on the classes, right? The flip normals are great. They're a great database for like tutorials, but it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking like for feedback and reviews and etc., you're not going to get that from tutorials, right? So you need an actual school or a mentorship program. So that depends on what you want, right? Again, so let's just finish this up. Like project history, and we get this, right? And you can see it's a little wonky, but it doesn't matter, to be honest. Like you get to a point where you want your poly count to be fair. So let's say something like that, and then actually let me stop smoothing, because that's the issue here. It's smoothing too much, right? So, and let's keep the adaptive size down to 0 now. There we go. And now project history. And this would be sort of our mesh. It looks horrible, but I promise you, once we get to, this is horrible because of the silhouette there is all broken up. Yeah, I need it. But yeah, but usually you do like some of these things that we do here, and then you get cleaner geometry. I'm just not going to spend a whole bunch of time here boring you guys out of your skull. So the next one that we're going to do is the least. We're going to start to delve into least procedural or least automatic, let's say, ways of doing retopology. And we have the topology brush, right? Which is usually something that people use to create geometry and topology. So let's say you want to have a panel and you want to draw it yourself. So let's say I want a panel over here. I can go over here, BTP. Actually, no, BTO. Oh, Jesus. Am I getting Alzheimer's or something? Like, what is the topology brush? It did change. BTO, yeah. I don't know why that didn't work. But yeah, so you go and you draw like your curves, right? Whoops. There it is. You draw your curves, and for some reason it's projecting. Let me go over here, reset that brush. There we go. Whoa. Something wrong with my mesh over there. For some reason it's solo. Maybe that's the problem. No. Huh. That is weird. Why is the topology brush doing that? Let me see if it happens on another mesh. Make polymesh 3D. No. What the heck is going on? Jesus. It's just not snapping to the surface. Let me see if I can go to brush. Yeah, glad I could help. Well, I'm not a big 3ds Max guy, so I can't really tell you because I don't know. I know that it's irrelevant if it's 3ds Max on Maya. Like, to be honest, a lot of tutorials I watch, they are not in Maya, but I use Maya. They're not in Maya, they're in Blender or 3ds Max or whatever. But if you know the software that you're using, it doesn't really matter if the person in the video is using 3ds Max or something else, right? Where was that thing? There was a thing to snap that to the surface. Oh, right, I know what it is. It's the history. Yeah, Jesus, I'm so dumb. Yeah, it's the history. If you have history... Oh, Jesus. Oh, my God. I'm sorry. It's Saturday. I should be on the beach. No, I'm kidding. I love being here with you guys. I mean, but yeah, when you have history turned on, it's like you have a... Not history turned on, but if you have something ticked in the history on another mesh even, and you start drawing, it's going to project based on that mesh's detail. So now I turned off that history button thingy, and now if I draw, there it is. Okay. I thought it was something like the snap to surface was not turned on or something. So let's say I want a panel, and I want a panel, I don't know, this weird shape panel. I can just start, you know, drawing my polygons over there like that, you know. And this is quick, and then you can just go alt drag outside and you have your polys, click, and that's a poly. If you want the flat poly, just go draw size 1, click, click, Jesus, click that, and there it is. And of course it's still part of the same subtool, but it's unmasked, right? So you go over here to, well, basically let me do it the traditional way. So you want to go to split unmasked points, and that is now its own separate subtool. See, over there, clean geometry. That's it. And now you can go crazy. You can go create, you know, go dynamic subdivision maybe. Go to dynamic subdivision, add a little bit of thickness, a lot of thickness, okay. A lot of thickness, maybe less segments. You don't want smooth subdivide. Maybe you want some smooth subdivisions. You want to crease this maybe, so let's crease by angle over here. Crease that, so it's creased around the corner. And now you have this sort of weird, like, tear duct kind of shape, whatever. So this is just one of the ways, and this is one of the ways that I use a lot, particularly for organic forms. Whoops. I just go over with a topology brush and I go, all right, I want a line over here, and I want this line to carry over there, and I want this over here, and I want this over there, I want this to carry over. Whoops. I want this to carry over there. I want this over here. I want this to continue. And I start building my geometry, but don't get too caught up, right, in the details. You just want broad strokes, because you can always just go ZModeler and divide this as you want later on. And let me just do this. Now you have that topology over there. And it's also a good idea to just keep on building this geometry, so you can go over here and do another cut. Whoops. Do another cut like over there. Actually, no. Let's do it over like so. Remember, ZBrush doesn't read n-gons, so if you have like an n-gon, it just won't show anything. So go over here, keep doing this, and we can have our cut over there. Whoops. Can have a cut like going over here. Actually, I want this to be fairly precise in that middle, right over there, and just continue on like so. And maybe I want a triangle over there in the middle. Doesn't matter, triangles are fine for game art purposes, unless they're like super like compromising mesh integrity. So I want to do this. Whoops. I actually want to do, there we go, there's a triangle there. I want to have a little bit more geometry over there, and just keep building, basically keep building your mesh like so. Maybe another one over there, and we want this one over there, and now you have a triangle there also. And if you at some point want to clean this up, you know, let me just keep doing a few of them, a few more. And maybe this one as well. This is rather important, because you want to start setting that platform on top. This is definitely a triangle, you know, right over there. And this can go like so. And actually, it shouldn't be a quad though. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I can just go over here and just push those curves out. Whoops. Push them down. And if I alt drag outside, it's gonna clean up all those extra edges, and I get only my geometry, right? So is there a way to work with softened edges when I'm doing block out in Maya? Important, the ZBrush edges are always harsh. No, I don't think there is. I'm not sure. Maybe Ian will watch this and just bash me. But yeah, there's no way. That's also one of the things that I still do in Maya: soften the edges and hard edges and stuff like that. Especially when there's UV seams, you want to have hard edges over there, so they don't. There's not, you know, a weirdness in the normals going on in the model and in game. But then you have basically you have well, technically ZBrush is doing that for you when you're subdividing in your modeling, right? Because what you're doing when you're smoothing the edges, let's say, it's technically trying to average out the geometry, right? For lighting purposes, right? So the normals, it's averaging out the normals, the normal direction. So you don't need that in ZBrush, because in ZBrush you're not doing any crazy shader kind of stuff, right? The materials are fairly simple. Even the redshift materials are fairly simple. They're made for quick iteration and fast results, right? That's great. But in terms of like smoothing the edge of normals, and again, like I would do that after the fact when I'm done retopologizing. That's literally where, when I would come over here and then just in Maya or whatever, or in C4D or whatever you use, just go over there and do the smoothing edges. So that, UV packing, and LODs eventually if that's necessary. There we go. Whoops. So this is another method, right, for retopo. And we're gonna do another cut over there. And another cut over here. Whoops. Actually, a cut like so. Huh. Let me do a little cut like that. And let's try something like this. And now this can be extended like that. There we go. And the same thing goes over here. We get a little cut like that. And we can extend this over here. And we can start. Again, I don't need like hyper complex geometry. All I want is like a fair poly count. We can still tweak this after the fact. And I'm gonna show you in the same mesh actually the other feature that I use all the time, which is ZModeler Retopology. Yeah, ZModeler is basically the brush. It's a brush in ZBrush, right? Everything's a brush. That allows you to do box modeling. That's like you would model in something like Maya, Blender, or Cinema 4D, right? Like extruding edges and stuff like that. That's what ZModeler's for. But I would say ZModeler has QMesh, which is like, you know, that's, I'm gonna, you know, steal what Ian said on ZGraph. I've been watching ZGraph. I don't know if you guys noticed that. But, basically, ZModeler, well, this QMesh is basically extrude on steroids. That's what it is. You know, it's insane. You know, they're just the features of QMesh and what you can do with it is just insane. You know, there's no other way of putting it. So this goes over there, this goes over there, and now we get, actually no, this should go like this, and then you get, there we go. Actually you want a poly there, and you want this poly over there. Nope. Also, if you want to delete a few curves, just alt drag on around them. It's gonna delete that. Jesus, my tablet is just going crazy. And go over here. There we go. And now we do this. Yeah, that's weird over there, but you can always tweak that further. Let me just delete those. Just drag that over there and have a triangle over there. Huh. There's something wrong over here. This should be a quad. It's not a quad. Yeah, it's quad now. There we go. And another cool thing is you can do this and just actually delete that one. You can redirect your geometry to go, you know, like so. If you want to do like cool like edge looping, you have a lot more control, like hand control, but it's slower, right? So that's there's always a caveat to tools. And I've been hearing like, hey, AI will do this. It's like, yes and no. Probably for the auto retopology, like ZRemesher powered by AI would be much faster, right? But I mean, no, because at the end of the day, you still need, let's say you want a UV seam like there. You can't really, you know, you're never gonna get like perfect results using AI tools, you know. You don't get perfect results in procedural tools where you're the one actually tweaking the nodes. So I hear that all the time. For some reason this is repeating. I don't really like that song, I'm sorry. Let's go over there. So, push that here. And clean that up. There we go. I'm gonna try and cut this like that. Like that. We're gonna have a little triangle there. Which I mean, yeah, I guess it's necessary. We can tweak this further, again. No need to worry. Like that, and like that. Whoops. No, I want this actually to go over there. There we go. That's a triangle now. And I want to go over there. This is the section where I think ZSphere Retopology would be faster. If you want to do like these weird things over there, it's just faster than using the curves, like the Topology brush. Thank you. Thank you, man. There's a macro for smooth normals preview. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Sure. I mean, but you still need to, if it's a preview, you still need to actually apply that to your final game ready model. So you still need to go to an outside application. So it's great for previewing, but it's like you're still gonna have to manipulate that outside of ZBrush. But cool. Just post it on chat. There we go. See that? Sound effects. If there's some students of mine, former students of mine in the chat, they know I'm a big sound effect kind of guy. I always do sound effects when I'm doing, you know, stuff in ZBrush. Sound effects are key. Not just in ZBrush, to be honest. Like, just for everything, basically. And let me just delete that over there. And let me just get this. Actually, you can, usually it's a good idea to push the curves further and then just do that. And there it is. And there it is. And there it is. That should be a triangle though. So we should push this like that. And there we get an edge like that. And we get something like this. It's not perfect. Again, very hard to get this nailed to a T. Because it still has some limitations when it comes to like how to actually place the points and the polygons and all of that. But it gives you a pretty good result, especially if you're pouring out and you want speed above all else. So it just goes like so, like so. And now we want to have, because this is what I would usually do. Like, let's say, okay, we have this one, okay? And we want to have this as geometry. We tap, whoops, draw size to 1, and then tap, and this is actual geometry now. So I'm going to separate this. So I'm going to go to, where's my, Jesus, I'm a little confused today. Split and masked. So that's a separate tool now. Separate subtool, I'm sorry. And if you turn off solo mode and you press transparency with the ghost on, you can see that it's there, right? Even without ghost on. You can see where the geometry is inside the model. I usually create one of these visibility groups and have that like that, so I can see what I'm doing. And ZModeler topology is basically BZM. So we already went through Decimation, ZRemesher, and Topology brush, right? And now ZModeler topology, which is BZT on my end, it's also not a default brush, so you have to go to your brush palette, your brush tab on the lightbox, and load that. Load the ZModeler topology brush. And it's basically the ZModeler, but it already has the settings for edges. It usually extrudes and snaps to the surface, so you can see what's going on. It's basically the closer you get to quad draw in Maya, right? So you get something like this, and then you have the move for points, right? And it snaps, right? You want maybe a bigger brush size, so the point is usually a snap instruction, and the edge is extrude, so you can actually move stuff around while they're snapping to the surface, you know? So you get something like that, and then you can also extrude and snap, because that's also a cool feature. And if you want to have a lot more control, and this is usually something, all right, so now I go between ZModeler, because I want to set, I want a ZModeler to have like insert single edge loop, and I want ZModeler topology to have those retopology features. So now I can insert edge loops, and I can also just move a little bit so they actually snap. And if I go back to ZModeler again, I can create an edge loop and then BZT again, and then move around to make it snap to the surface, move it around a little bit. And you can preview this with the dynamic subdivisions, which is basically your smooth preview in Maya, right? Extrude this and snap. Is it snapping correctly? Well, kinda. We can just go over here. And this is why I use when I use the modeler topology, I combine that with the topology brush or the ZSphere retopology, you know? And we could do this and edit this topology as ZSphere retopology as well. So we can actually copy this. Where's topology? Topology. Actually, we need to bring this over to a separate something. So let me just insert that mesh over there. There it is. Okay. And now if I go back to my mesh over here and I insert a ZSphere, and I'll go back down to topology in the ZSphere, I can select that topology that I just created, and that's our topology. And now I can use ZSphere retopology with the topology that we just created using the topology brush and the ZModeler topology. So this is how you combine the three different features: the ZModeler topology, topology brush, and ZSphere topology. I usually start with a topology brush, to be honest, because it's just faster. Get like broad edge loops. But the thing is, with the ZSphere topology, you have like finer control over everything, right? So you can, edit topology. You have to edit topology. And you can move stuff around. You can go to draw mode, and then you can click over there, and now you have your points. You can actually manually go over this and create the topology you want. So let's say I want all of these features, right? So I can just go over here, tap this, make a little triangle there, and then maybe create another edge loop there, move this down here, move this down here, move this down here. So you can be a lot more precise, you see, than with a topology brush, but the topology brush is way faster. So what I usually do is I combine all the features. I never go, I just use topology brush, because what I see a lot of people complaining about when it comes to retopology and ZBrush is that there's no perfect tool. And that's right. That is also very correct. You know, there's no perfect tool, but you do what you need to do to get the job done. And usually that means combining tools together to achieve the result. So if you combine all of these features as one single workflow, then it's way faster and way more liberating than using Maya or any other sort of retopology tool. I would say 3D Coat is pretty good when it comes to retopology, but I still prefer ZBrush. I still think this is, and you're not leaving the app, you know, it's just, you can still sculpt this. I can still go over here to the other tool. Oops, sorry. Go over here to the other tool and sculpt something, and then come back and tweak my topology, right? Not this one, I'm sorry, this one. I can still come back here, edit topology, and tweak that and make that snap to the new geometry. That's something that I don't get that control in my previous workflow before I learned this, which I would go decimate this, bring that to Maya, snap to make it live surface, right, and then snap using quad draw, and then something's wrong with the high poly mesh. Oh no, I have to re-sculpt everything and retopologize everything from scratch. It's not gonna happen in ZBrush, you know. So that's one of the reasons I prefer using ZBrush. I can also go over here and delete that one if I don't want it. I can move this down over here, so you can see like the amount of control. For example, I don't like that one, delete that one, and I want this to go straight over there, and I want this to go straight over there. I don't need more than this for my low poly silhouette. Most of the detail again is going to be on the normal map, right? So I want this to represent those edges over there, but I don't need, actually I can have a triangle there just for the sake of, there we go. And like so, triangle there. You can check if you press A, it's going to give you an adaptive skin, and by default adaptive skin has Dynamesh, which you don't want. You want this at 0 and the density at 1. So when you click preview, it's going to give you the preview of your ZSphere retopology. It's the same as pressing A, you know, the letter A. So yeah, I love this too, man. A lot of people find this boring, and I took a risk actually showcasing this on stream. So a lot of people think, oh, retopology is such a pain. It's like, well, if you know, in ZBrush it's kind of relaxing. I like it, you know. So yeah, just go over there. I want to create this. This is the old school method, by the way. This method of retopology has been here since forever. Basically since they introduced ZSpheres, which has been like forever ago. I was still, you know, learning Maya, and I was still in high school. So it's like, you know, that's a long time ago. To be honest, I was a bit of a rebel student, and I got, what do you call that? What do you say that? How do you say that in English? I got stuck a year, you know, in 10th grade because I was a horrible student. But even so, I was still, you know, I was self-taught, still learning Maya and being scared of ZBrush like I was for almost 10 years. So yeah, that was the first time I heard about Michael Pavlovich as well, from a 3D tutorial from Eat 3D, which at the time was all the rage. It was Eat 3D. For ZBrush, it was Eat 3D and Nomon. Nomon always had great content for ZBrush ever since then. There was also, at the time, Digital Tutors. I don't know if someone here is a boomer like me and remembers Digital Tutors. Digital Tutors was the thing for me learning Maya. I have to tell you that. And they had a bunch of ZBrush tutorials, and I watched them because I bought Digital Tutors subscriptions. At the time, there was no subscriptions, weren't a thing, but Digital Tutors had a subscription model. And yeah, even Nomon was DVDs. They had DVDs. Nomon Workshop was a DVD library. So you see how much of a boomer I am? There you go. So there we go. This goes over there, and maybe we can have a triangle there. And you can see it's a little slower than the other method. Again, I didn't finish this. I usually go with the topology brush around everything, you know, but we can still do that. I mean, I can still go over here and say make adaptive skin, and it made an adaptive skin. It's just on a separate tool. Well, actually it didn't. No. Okay. I'm gonna click this and click make adaptive skin. There it is. Okay. So it created here. This, no, this is not happening. There it is. Okay, ZSphere skin. So it created a skin, right? And we can go over here and finish up our work, basically, on this model over there. And we get the notion, basically, if we go to ghost mode. We know where the topology is fairly, so we can go back to our topology brush. Easy BTO, and start doing the same thing we were doing before, just to get the broad sort of, you know, strokes. Just do this, 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 and this, and then we can tweak it as we please using the other features together, combined. It's everything is like combined in ZBrush. That's what I like about it. If you know, the more you know about ZBrush, the more you realize that there's like infinite ways to do things, you know? There's no like correct single way to do things. That's one of the things I like about it. It's so liberating, because a lot of my day job is not just modeling and stuff, you know? Like I do a lot of tech art in Unreal Engine, so it's a lot of like doing either blueprints and code, or doing like material editor stuff, you know, with technical shaders and doing like things for effects and stuff like that. And usually there's a good way to do things in tech art, and there's a bad way, you know, in a sense, because it all comes down to optimization, right? So if you do the things in a more effective way, so you're sort of like optimizing the code, then that's the correct way. That doesn't mean it's not creative. It's still creative, but at the same time, it's not as liberating as ZBrush, you know. So doing this like every weekend with you guys is great. I like it. It's just liberating to come back to just pure sculpting. And even this, which is a little bit more technical, is still pretty much more liberating than handling technical stuff in Unreal. Not to say I don't like it. I love technical art. I love doing shaders in Unreal. I love doing effects. But it's just nice to come back. So there we go. There we go. You can always like weld those together. Doesn't really matter over there. See, there's like n-gons there. ZBrush doesn't like that, and neither should you. You shouldn't like n-gons. No one likes n-gons. Ah, come on. Brush size too small. Okay. This doesn't matter anyway, because if we're gonna do the ZSphere retopology, all we care about is literally doing this, right? Yeah, we don't even need that section over there, so we can just go and do this and do this. Whoops. You have ghost mode turned on, so it's gonna click other stuff that's on the other side of that. So let me just see if I can tie that together. Nope, doesn't matter. Okay, we can start cleaning this up. There we go. There we go. And push this like that. just get the broad feeling of the topology that you want, you know. Again, you can see how this is taking much longer than the ZRemesher route. So this is definitely not something for you guys that want something quick, you know, like something really quick. You don't get that in using this method. It's still faster than doing it the old-fashioned way. When I say the old-fashioned way, is the way I used to do. Yeah, that's what I was doing. This is just one form. If you watch the rest of the stream, I've been doing ZModeler Retopology. I'm going to show you guys. So okay, so I have another shell of my mesh, right? So if I go over here, draw size 1, then go to split on mask points, and then go to my skin ZSphere from the ZSphere Retopology. Insert that back. No, it's not this one. Insert the... Oh, no, Jesus. It's on another subtool. So this is my peak over there. And this is the other section that we just created, right? So if I go over here, insert skin ZSphere. Ah, Jesus, I'm always missing. It's not that one. I should name this. Oh my God. What is wrong with me today? Always okay. Okay. There it is. Okay. So insert. Should be this one. There we go. No. What the heck? What the heck's going on? Jesus Christ. Let me go back into solo mode. This peak high, let's call this retopo, so I know what I'm looking at. Insert. There it is. Okay, I was picking the wrong one. So now if I go over here and I merge this, right? So go merge down. And I can now, this is how you basically use a bunch of different tools. Like we're doing ZRemesher. I showed you ZRemesher. Now we use Topology brush and ZSphere Retopology, which is the point-by-point method that you're talking about, and ZSphere, ZModeler topology, right? And now I go back to my retopo one, and I insert that one. I actually no. Go back to my ZSphere, which had this, right? And this should have been different. So let me insert that topology again. Jesus, I'm getting all confused. It's supposed to be this one. Insert. Or actually no, I think that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. So go to ZSphere. You have your old like topology there. See that? So this is the point-by-point method that you were talking about. Go to Topology and click Delete Topo. Turn off Edit Topology. Select Topo. And now you select that one that we just created, right? Which is this one. And now we have everything we've done so far, I think. No, that's not the one. Let me see. What is it called? Right. It's called Skin ZSphere 2.1. Okay, so now I go here. That's why you should name everything. Otherwise this happens. Topology, select topology, Skin ZSphere 2.1. There it is. Okay, there it is. So now we used the ZModeler topology, the topology brush, and the ZSphere Retopology together, right? So if I click Edit Topology, and I go to transparency mode, because I prefer this, I can keep working point by point. So go to Draw, click here, click there, and we're creating point by point. You can move them around. It snaps nice, snaps to the surface. Right, like so, and keep on working point by point. This is not something, because it's not as fast as doing the topology brush. So I do topology brush for everything broadly speaking, and then basically doing the ZSphere retopology to go like fine-tune stuff. Yeah. Hey man, how you doing? Yeah, I did that method with the ZRemesher before. If you watch the stream, that's going to be on YouTube. If you really want to see how I use polygroup it to polygroup faces that of a super high poly mesh and then use ZRemesher, that's there. Just go back and watch the rest of the stream. So good mid-tier digital tablet. Well, the one I'm using, it's not a Wacom. I'm using a XP Pen Pro, 16-inch actually, and I'm thinking of upgrading to a Wacom. But this is mid-tier. It's not the same as a Wacom at all, but it's pretty good for its price range. It's not that expensive, you know. So just go Artist Pro, XP Pen Artist Pro. They have a lot of good tablets. There's also Huion. Huion, is that how you spell it? So there we go. Yeah, so going back to this, the point that Elemeno is trying to say is that he is right. By default, ZRemesher is not, it gives you like a blurred version, right? But there are ways to make it hold the lines. Like if you understand how keep groups works, how keep creased edges works, that's, you know, that's how ZRemesher works. I have a lot of like stuff in my projects. If you go to my portfolio, that's literally just ZRemesher. Like literally, just using the groups, polygroups to keep the edges creased. A lot of hard surface work that I did in ZBrush and I ZRemeshed. Again, go back to the ZBrush Summit a few years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. There's a whole talk by It Software on how they used used ZBrush for mostly everything in Doom Eternal. So Doom Eternal is an ode to ZBrush, basically. And that game's freaking beautiful and super well optimized. So, you know, I don't get that point. Sorry. I just don't understand why people still think that ZBrush is not, you know, what it is technically today. Because it was like that, like 10 years ago. 10 years ago, ZBrush was like using the tools that ZBrush had were not optimal for games particularly. Like you'd still have to go through an entire other set of pipeline tools to create what you wanted to create for games. But nowadays it's not like that anymore. There's so many things that you can do even for UVs that people are just not aware of, you know. So that's one of the things I don't get, because there's information online as well. There's Michael Pavlovich has that a whole set of like a playlist just on the features. I learned most of what I know from Paul Gabry, but I did do the course from Michael Pavlovich as well, and he's an incredible teacher. He knows like a lot about ZBrush. So just delete that one. That one's giving me issues, so whoops. There we go. There we go. There we go. And over here. So any of you guys playing Baldur's Gate? You know? I've been playing Baldur's Gate. Not. I don't have time, man. I wish. But I saw the game. It looks incredible. It looks freaking amazing. It's basically like Dungeons and Dragons. It's the closest experience you get to playing Dungeons and Dragons, but in a video game, right? It's Baldur's Gate. It's literally Dungeons and Dragons, but it usually doesn't translate that well into video games. The experience, I mean. But it's great that they did that. There we go. Old school ZSphere Retopology. This is like ZSphere Retopology has been here since before ZRemesher, I would say. It's old. It's an old feature. Just that I'm pretty sure it's been here since ZRemesher, since before ZRemesher, but I don't know. People might correct me on that one. There we go. Again, guys, if you want feedback, if you want to keep up to date on streams, etc., even on my own channel that I do every 2 weeks, in between ZBrush live streams, I go on my own channel to do a lot of like Unreal stuff and Substance Painter as well. Other work that is not just, you know, sculpting. If you want to keep up to date with that, just go and follow the Discord server, and I'll share updates there more oftenly. Trying to get away from using Instagram for that. So there's a new Discord server. So now we could use ZModeler Retopology, but since we're here, we might as well just delete that one and just have this. Delete that one. Go like that, like that. Whoops. Move it a little bit so it snaps to the surface, just like Quadro in Maya. It would be something like this. This could be a triangle, actually. Doesn't really matter. And this could be another triangle over there. There we go. We on, yeah, we on. And trying to get a job someday in 3D. I hope it's not too late. I just graduated last year from. I'm very new to ZBrush. I do have a whack on video. Yeah, no, it's never too late, man. Like, all right, you're 47, right? I'm 33. So yeah, I'm a little younger, but it's not like I'm 20, you know. And it's fine. You know, like it's okay. I know a lot of people. I know a concept artist that is from France. Is a big concept artist and illustrator. Of course, it's concept art, so there's less tools to learn per se. But there's like basically he was a banker until it is like 40s, and then he switched careers all of a sudden and dedicated like 2 years to just learn how to paint. And now he's like one of the greatest concept artists and illustrators in the world. I won't say his name because, you know, for privacy reasons, the story I just told. But yeah, so there's definitely, that doesn't matter. Your age doesn't matter. Technically, to be honest, the age is like, your age is how many years of experience you have. So you're not 47. If you're just starting, you're 1 year old. That's what you are to the industry, right? And there's a lot of people, trust me, that are way older than me, you know, when it comes to that, to experience. And they're literally way older than me as well. So don't worry about that. Just do your thing. Just do it because you love it. Don't do it because, oh, job, you know. Job comes as a consequence of that and not because it's your main, you know, the riches and laurels, let's say. Come as a natural manifestation of your passion. This sounds a little bit, you know, mumbo jumbo. I promise you it's not. Yeah, so here's the thing. It's already 3:30 p.m. which means we're done almost, you know. I'm older than all of you. Oh my god. Okay. That's fine, man. I mean, it's okay. Like, to be honest, companies aren't even allowed to ask you your age on interviews by law. Well, at least not in the EU. Not that some companies just do that anyway, but I mean, by law, you're not allowed to ask for age because that's discrimination, you know? So, no worries, dude. This was a little bit of an headache. It should have a column. I don't know what you mean, man. Column. For example, if you want a retopo, any other software, it's all there. It's one of many people find it hard to start with. Yeah, it's still there. I just use this method because I prefer to have it as separate chunks and then unite them. Yeah. Yeah, that is true. No matter how old you are, where you are, what's your race, ethnicity, your sexual orientation, whatever, there's always a place for you. That's the key, right? And it doesn't matter if you're different or similar, you know? Doesn't matter. Like in the industry, you have to think about it like this. It's an industry. It needs to make money. That's the bottom line. And to make money, it will require the correct talent for the job. So if you have the talent for the job, and talent means skill, right? Doesn't mean like some sort of like divine, you know, you're just born like that or something. It's not like that. It's skill. It's trainable. So if you have the correct set of skills that allows the company to make money off your skills, then that's the bottom line. Doesn't matter who you are, right? At the end of the day, it's all about money. And that's also very liberating because that's the way, it's sort of the democracy of the economy comes from that, right? The one that makes more money, that makes you more money, it's the one you pick, regardless of your political bias or regardless of your race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion, whatever. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the company wants to make money, and money is the driver for equal opportunity, right? I did that. I showed you guys how to do this cam view thing on the last stream. So it's there on YouTube. If you type it in, go to the live tab and search for the last week's stream, and there's a tutorial on how to do that. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna create a few like cam views for people on the Discord server. So if you join the Discord server, eventually I'm gonna share the cam views, a lot of cam views, not just this one, but some cam views with the logo, you know, for you guys to use on your own work, you know. All right, cool. So unfortunately we didn't finish. I'm gonna finish this off stream, the retopo of this couple of these meshes, and we're gonna start next week on Unreal, start assembling the actual scene, creating the shaders. So if you want to follow that, creating materials for props, creating blends, creating technical art, using our ZBrush assets. If you want to learn about that, if you want to stick around, just be sure to follow me on Twitch and on YouTube, on my own personal channels. I can also link that here. Let me just go over here to my YouTube real quick. We have to leave because Smartest is gonna start soon. And I don't want to be, you know, I already was kind of a douche for doing what I did on his streams, man. I promise it wasn't on purpose, man, you know. So there it is. This is the YouTube channel if you want to follow, and the Twitch channel, which should have a cool, should be up to date when it comes to like what it is doing. There's the Twitch channel, and the Discord link, I'm gonna post it up again. I might as well just put an overlay on my streams just so people can find it. That's the Discord server, right? So guys, just join the Discord server, introduce yourselves, and just be sure to share whatever questions you have, work in progress, finished work, whatever you feel like you need to improve your skills and improve your ZBrush ability. I'm happy to help. I'm not, you know, I don't know everything in ZBrush. I know a lot. I'm pretty confident in my ZBrush skills. But if there's something I don't know, I'm pretty sure someone in the community is gonna fill in that void. You know, that's the beauty of social media, right? Okay, guys, this was great. This was awesome. I love doing this. I'm gonna take a few days off in like maybe 3-4 weeks, and after I come back from that hiatus, let's say, I'll be sure to do like 4-hour streams instead of 2 hours, because this is ridiculous. Like for environment art, it just doesn't work, you know, because this is supposed to be like a finished thing right now, like the retopo itself. And yeah, so this is one of the ways, and there's also many other ways to do retopo. If you guys want to find out, just stay tuned on ZBrushLIVE, and stay tuned for the next stream as well for smart artists. Like Stefan is gonna keep working on he's also doing retopology, because I saw his last stream. He was doing retopology of his character. His character is basically sort of the same thing I'm doing here, but for characters. So if you want to stick around, just stick around for his stream. It's gonna be great. And be sure to follow me on those channels for next week. We're gonna do some Unreal stuff, Unreal work, some baking, and some Substance Painter textures on these rocks over here. And join the Discord server for questions and answers and anything you might need, ZBrush or non-ZBrush related, industry advice, and, you know, job searching advice, stuff, whatever. Okay, guys, thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a nice weekend. Stick around if you want. If not, go to the beach if you're from a country like mine, which is sunny during this time of the year. If not, I'm sad for you, and I'm very, very sorry. Okay? All right, guys, see you later. I hope you enjoy this, and see you soon. Happy ZBrushing. Bye-bye.